What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Hatoraid Live, the Hatoraid Hour podcast on this Friday evening. I am your host, Jordan, aka Hatoraid Cowboy, and today we're going to be talking about Trinnov. And to do that, we've got some returning guests. We've got Chuck back from Trinnov Audio. What's going on, Chuck?
Hey, welcome everybody. Great to be here.
Thank you. Good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And then we also have Shane Lee. What's going on, Shane?
Hello, welcome back, guys.
All right, so yeah, we wanted to talk about Trinnov. If you guys follow our channels, you know Shane's had a Trinnov for how many years have you had your Trinnov now, Shane?
I think about 4 years, maybe
4
going on
years?
5.
And you started off with the 16.
Started off with the little baby 16 and moved up to the big boy. Well,
The
the
32.
teenage one, the 24 channel.
Or
Yeah.
24, that's right. Yeah.
That's
But you've
young.
also expanded
Yeah.
to what's your channel count now?
Now I'm at 28 or
28.
28
That is
channels. Yeah,
insane, man.
28.
We got Craig Osterberg in the house. What's going on, Craig? We got Howard Wang. Good morning, everyone. So, yeah, I've been using Trinnov, been making some content with it. We'll be having an official review at some point, but I'm loving it. It's unlike anything that I've ever used. I've heard it, at CEDIA, different shows and stuff like that. But wanted to have Chuck on here to kind of talk more a little bit about Trinnov. We're going to talk about the app because they have an app too, and then I'm gonna show you guys my web GUI and have Chuck talk about some of the features. We're not gonna go like super in depth because we don't have that kind of time. But Chuck, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for those that don't know? What do you do at Trinnov?
My title is Managing Director of Trinnov US. I'm one of two managing directors. John Heron and I have basically the same role in the company. I'm based in California. John is at the Trinnov offices in Connecticut. And we're primarily involved in sales. And sales for Trinnov involves a lot of conversations with customers and dealers before systems are being implemented. So we're doing designs, we're doing reviews of speaker layouts, validating what dealers have created, answering technical questions. Because the Trinnov processors can be accessed remotely through our server in Paris, we spend a lot of time with dealers and end users doing remote setup and remote calibration of systems, which is something that can be done as long as there's someone there to move the microphone. We can do a full remote calibration and follow up troubleshooting if someone has problems, and that's the day-to-day that we do. We're also involved in some of the business aspects as well. A little bit more involved in that. John's a little more on the technical side. I'm a little bit more on the business side. But that's basically what I'm doing for Trinnov on a regular, ongoing basis.
Yeah, and Shane, you just had John on. What was that last week? Talking about speaker locations and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we went through some best practices for speaker placements for anywhere from like 7 channels up to multiple channels up to like 28, 32. So if you guys had any questions on where to place your wide channels, or what is it like to have multiple side surrounds and how many do you need? And why do you have so many side surround channels? What is the benefit? Well, he goes in depth about that. And, I share some of my experiences with that as well, which if you have any questions, definitely drop them down in the chat section here as well. We'll answer them also. And I'm sure Chuck can answer some else as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and always, as always, super chats are always welcome. Yeah, that was a very good stream. Learned a lot, and you guys were talking about waveforming and stuff. Because Shane, you're doing waveforming right now, right? What has been your experience with waveforming versus like before you had waveforming implemented?
So it's a little bit cleaner sounding. Well, it's a different sounding kind of bass. It's almost like pre-waveforming. It was a little, not saying that my subs are bad sounding. Maybe just a little bit more boomy sounding. Maybe less controlled. It just seems to be a bit more taut, a little bit more tight, a little snap and kick to the bass after waveforming. However, you can kind of tone that down. I think there's like some delay settings, and I forgot what the actual terms are, like limiter settings and stuff like that, and how much decay you can apply.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of tailor that to however you like. So, I mean, if
Yeah.
you like the more boomier sound, you can 100% still keep that there. So you can kind of tweak it to however.
There are settings for the amount of control that's applied to the subs, and a separate setting for decay control.
Yeah.
So what we're doing with decay control is energy that reverberates and lingers in the room with a conventional subwoofer installation in a typical theater.
Oh, did we lose?
You may want to go for a drier bass sound that's a little bit more articulate, a little bit cleaner. But you may find with other sources, maybe some music, it's not as rich, it's not as warm. Maybe a string bass doesn't sound as fat as it should. So we give you the ability to fine tune. And because we have 29 presets in the altitude, you can have different presets with different waveforming settings.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got mine somewhere in the middle. Because, action movies, sometimes you want a little bit of that fatness down there.
Yeah, and you've got how many subs right now, Shane, are you using in your waveforming?
So I got 8 in mine. I got 5 up front and then 3 in the back.
In the back. And
So,
and you've got some on
4.
the wall too, right?
Yeah, I got
Elevated.
2 top, 2 bottom, my infra in the middle, center, then 3 across the back.
Okay.
Mid wall. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, and hopefully you guys don't pick that up. My yard people decided to come and cut my grass during the stream, so sorry about that, guys, if you can hear that.
I've implemented, I've got 4 subwoofers in my system. So I'm doing cylindrical waveforming. And there's a significant improvement in my space because of some modal issues with where the front subs are placed and where the seat, primary seating position is. And waveforming resolves that completely. It's one of the other benefits that is obtained when you have multiple seats in a theater is waveforming vastly improves the seat-to-seat consistency, which is probably the most difficult challenge in a multi-seat theater, getting the same level of bass, not having these 10 or 15 decibel variations from one seat to another.
Yeah, I recalibrated mine the other day after I was talking to John. He was just like, don't use your PEQs before you do the optimizer, because if you're going to do it afterwards. And so I redid it all over again. The first time around it takes quite a while, especially if you have a lot of speakers. So
Yeah.
The test tones, I was like, I don't remember it being like 40 minutes.
Wow.
But, yeah, you can do the bass measurement in a couple minutes, but with waveforming, you're taking 10 to 20 measurements, and each. The good thing is that 10 to 20 measurements is only the subwoofer, so you don't have to measure the entire system. But at the same time, if you've got 6 or 8 subs, that's 6 or 8 subs times 10 or 20.
Yeah, I can run in and out of the room. Oh, speaking of getting that microphone placed up, I got this little round disc with a little bubble level on the top of it.
Yeah.
Shane got me onto
Yeah,
it.
there we go.
Yeah.
Let's see if it'll.
Got quite focused.
It's not going to focus.
Uh,
Actually, I can pull it up though because I have a
Must be a Panasonic.
Screenshot.
Must be a Panasonic camera.
shade. Let me pull this up real quick.
So what I do is I take the little plastic cover off the housing and I flip it upside down, and then I put that on top of it and try to level it out.
Yeah, that's the hack. I think we all do that. All folks do that. And inverting the cover is the key, because it's much easier to remove without disturbing the microphone placement. Orientation.
So is there a recommended size woofer on waveforming for subs, or is it you can use?
There's no specific. You can do it with 10-inch subs. You can do it with 8-inch subs, but you're going to be limited to the capability of the subwoofers. So it wouldn't make sense to use 8-inch or 10-inch subs in a large room.
Right.
When you have waveforming, the bass is cleaner. There might be a tendency to push it a little harder. So the best results come from having the larger 15, 18, 20 some inch subs. but it can be done very successfully with smaller subs as well.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Might be
what-
easier to place too, right? Get some on-wall
Yeah.
subs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's if you're doing something like dual 18-inch subs, it's going to be difficult to put multiples on a wall.
Yeah, that's true. One good way to test your Trinnov system is with the new demo that you guys have called Rings. So this is the number 2, right? Rings 2, or is this a
I think this is Rings. I haven't seen the nomenclature change, but this is the official release, and it combines one of our immersive soundtracks with images of Rings of Saturn and space images.
Yeah, it's pretty
Quite a
cool.
combination.
I got it says my mic is a little low. Okay, let me turn this up. How's that? Yeah, I got it I think about a week and a half ago, and it's really good. I mean, I was watching the Trinnov viewer, which we're going to talk about too. And I mean, everything was lit up. Everything was lit up, and I mean, just the immersiveness and the separation, the panning, and everything overheads. It was really cool. So, who actually does these trailers?
These are created by our director of marketing, Benoit Munoz,
Okay.
who was out of Paris, and his title is head of marketing, but he's really a creative artist. He's done all of the videos that you see in our YouTube channel, and he's also done all of our trailers. So he has a strong background in music mixing. He's worked in studios in the U.S. Over the years, and he's obviously very talented, very creative, and is using the full palette of Atmos to get these immersive experiences. And he's not shy about putting low frequency energy either. We want people to appreciate when they have really good subwoofers, and these videos don't disappoint.
Yeah, like I said, I watched it the whole way through, and I mean, pretty much everything was lit up almost the entire duration. Yeah. So you guys can go to Trinnov website and download it, right? I mean, I think it downloads as an MKV file.
Yeah, correct.
So if you have like a Zadoo or something like that, you can drop it on your server and just stream it over the network. So Steven says, I just finished setting up waveforming in my theater with 8 teams and a 240 square foot room, and the Rings demo was nuts. Jeez.
Love it.
You know what I like is that statue when that blows up, where it's just that low frequency bass.
Yeah, that's
one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's got the deepest bass of any of the trailers.
I use that to test kind of my crossover, because I usually run my crossovers a little bit lower, and you can tell when it crosses over and it hits a tweeter. I'm just like, oh, okay, let me back it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the app a little bit. So you guys have an app, and I know, Chuck, when we were talking a couple weeks ago, we hopped on a video call, and you were telling me I didn't know that there was an app, and so this is pretty convenient if you just want to do like some quick settings. And there's also something else there that I didn't realize was there. I don't know if that was there before when you told me about it, but tell me a little bit about the app. And I'm sharing my actual iPad, so I can I can click on whatever, So you've got your presets here.
So this is we have an iOS app, and it is very useful for day-to-day operation. You can operate it on your phone, or you can operate it on an iPad. It gives you all of the essential functions that you need with the altitude. So you've got your volume control, you have mute, you have the ability to use the dim button, which drops the volume level 20 dB or any setting you choose. You can turn the optimizer off and on. I think the only reason you want to do that is just to compare and see how much better it sounds, but it's there. It will give you the ability to select sources and presets, so you can easily switch your sources without having to go to any other devices, and it gives you the ability to select the outmixer and show you what's being used. So it's really your core functions.
And I maybe I didn't notice this last time, but I saw this today earlier. This will actually take you to the VNC. Was that there when
that is there for the iPad, but it's not there for the iPhone.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Because I think I use it on my iPhone. I was like, I don't remember seeing this. So
Yeah,
we're gonna talk about this here too in a little bit, but really useful tool. That's pretty cool that you can just pull this up on your iPad. If you don't
yeah,
want to have like a laptop or something.
exactly. That way you can get in if you need to change some other settings.
Okay, yeah. So
I do have a request. Could they make the web UI a little more high resolution?
I have the same request.
At, at, at this point, we could pass that along. I don't think with all the other priorities that might approach the top of the list, but we'll take it as duly noted.
Let me
Couldn't be something.
share.
Couldn't be something that hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
because
no, also there could be it could be a function of VNC in some cases too.
yeah, when I first started using it, I was like, is there something wrong with my my screen? What's going on here? So, oh, let me go back to that's the wrong one. Let's see. Let me go to share screen. Turn up up to software. Okay, here we go. So, what I wanted to have you do is kind of give a little bit of a little bit of a breakdown of what each tab is and what it does, and then we can go over to the VNC because that has a little bit more functionality, a little
Right.
bit more in depth. So this is the home screen, so you can control your. For those of you that don't know, you have a web GUI that you can log into. I've logged into it on my iPad, my iPhone. I usually just sit at my chair and just pull it up on my iPhone. It's really convenient. But what are we looking at here?
So this is again another version of a control panel with a bit more capability. You've got your volume control. You have the ability to select sources to the right by scrolling. Uh, you've got the dim and the mute buttons in the volume control section. Below that, you get information that tells you what source you're on and reports the format. Is PCM coming in? Is Atmos coming in? Whether you're using an up mixer or not. The out HDMI video tab gives you information on the EDID for the display. So in this case, if it's connected to a display, it's not turned on. But the submenu that you just clicked on gives you the ability to set your HDMI inputs to either HDMI 2.1, 2.0, or even 1.4 if you've got an old legacy device that doesn't like playing with the current formats. You also can pass through the audio signal on the HDMI outputs if that is desirable for getting to a TV or some other source, like potentially maybe some butt kickers. The on-screen display function will give you a volume display. It appears in the upper left of the screen for a couple seconds, then it disappears. And you
Yeah, I
can
like that.
add any of the rest of these bits of information as well.
Yeah, I did that because at first I was like, man, there's no on-screen menu, and then I found this. I was like, oh, so I checked everything,
Yeah,
and then very quickly I was like, oh, I don't need that. I don't need all that. So I
yeah, it's a
took
lot.
them
It's
off.
kind of cluttered to put on the screen, but it does refresh pretty quickly. And speaking of refresh, this is the button that will redo the handshake for HDMI. It's just there
Oh,
for
okay.
convenience.
So if for some reason you get like a black screen or something, you can just
Yeah, you
refresh
can
that, and
hit
it should.
that and see if that fixes it.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't have my projector or anything on. I just have the system on, so it's not going to show me anything.
Right, right. So the
Um,
latency is interesting. If you have a display or a device like a MadVR that does video processing, that device provides its latency, you'll see it here, and it'll be automatically applied for lip sync.
okay.
So a lot of displays, a lot of flat panel displays will have that. Not too many projectors. I think Sony has started to put that in some of their newer projectors. But it's a nice way to get the lip sync in sync with your display without having to do any additional work.
Yeah, I when I went to the Mad VR, I plugged it up and I had a lip sync, and then I just went in there and I just clicked the little button that you told me, and it fixed it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really convenient to have that.
So this, you may have noticed this on Shane's channel. He uses this a lot when he does his 4K reviews. So this is the Atmos viewer, right? Well, you've got some other stuff over here as well.
Yeah, it's the 3D layout page. It's where it's the first place you go when you're configuring a system. We need to tell the processor how many speakers we have, and to tell the processor what function are these speakers providing. So, do we have wides or do we have side surrounds, for example? Are we configuring for Oro 3D or are we configuring for Atmos? And so we have the ability to see a visual representation. And then underneath is where we actually do the assignments. So we can assign any of the available channels for Atmos or for Oro or for DTSX. And we have the ability to take any channel. For example, left channel can be assigned to output 1 of the back on the back of the altitude or any other number we want. So it's very flexible in terms of configuring. We also give you the ability to do different configurations for Atmos, for Legacy Dolby, for Oro, and for the 2 DTS formats. So in some cases, for example, Oro 3D has only 13 channels. So if you have a system like Shane's, you can have a lot of speakers that don't play. You may want to hear pure Oro 3D, and that's fine. You don't care about it. But a lot of people want all their speakers to play all the time. So you can use the function there to assign surround channels, for example, to speakers that otherwise wouldn't play, and height channels to speakers that wouldn't be used otherwise. There's quite a bit of flexibility in building your system layout.
Yeah, because you can go over here and for some reason it's not showing me the.
Oh, the drop downs don't show.
Oh, the drop downs don't show. Okay.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what's going on?
You had a question about what drop down menus, those presets where it's like Atmos narrow. What's the difference?
Well, the only difference there is in the placement of the left and right speakers. So Atmos narrow would be conforming to a 45-degree angle between the left and right, which is typical for cinema.
Mhm.
And Atmos would be the more common music, which would be 60-degree angle.
Does that actually do something?
No, not here.
Okay. Okay.
No, because the actual placement is going to be determined by what the microphone locates.
Yeah,
So
this
is redundant.
This is something that I wasn't used to before with anything else, where I could, once you, like with a receiver or your processor, or like when I had my, was using my RMC1, once you set your configuration, that's it. And I think even though the RMC1 is 16 channels, I couldn't use all 6 of my heights. I had to choose between 6 heights and like 1 sub, or like multiple subs and 4 heights. It was really weird. So when I started using this, I was like, oh, I can do all kinds of configuration, and then you can change it here based on the signal. When it senses that it's RO30, it changes. I don't have to go in and say, okay, let me change this over because I'm watching RO30. So it's kind of almost set it and forget it.
Yeah, well, it is. You're setting this up for permanent playback, and optimizing it for how you want to do each of the respective formats.
The only thing I couldn't figure out I was thinking about this for like hours one day because I just wanted to hear stereo. So I'm used to like AVRs having a direct or stereo button.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I just get 2 channels working? I was like, where is this direct? I was like, I don't know if it was you or John. He was like, oh, you just go and make a 2-channel preset. I was like, oh. I was like, I don't know why I couldn't think about that.
Yeah. So what is this dimension here? When you type, so this is typing in your room dimensions. How does this affect?
All that does is change this screen's display. That does nothing.
Oh, okay.
Has no effect whatsoever on the calibration. Again, because the microphone is going to capture everything with an extremely high degree of accuracy.
Gotcha.
So that's just to allow you to see what's going on in this 3D display.
Okay.
The other thing in that box, which we won't be able to see unless content is playing, is this, which is where you would see the object viewer for Atmos.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
this is cool. So yeah, this is what Shane uses whenever he's doing his, 4K reviews, Kaleidoscape reviews.
Yeah, it's my clipple for my movie reviews.
yeah,
Nice.
I like that.
Yeah. So I had a question. So the subs, it doesn't represent the actual placement of the subs in your room,
It
right?
does not.
Okay.
No, it's just going to put them on the front wall until you get. I don't know how many, but at some point they start moving to the back. We don't locate the subs in space.
Which makes sense because
Yeah.
it's sub frequencies. But when I first did it, I was like, why is it showing all my subs are up in the front? Like I got
Yeah.
two, and then I was like, oh, I don't think it, I don't think it shows that.
Yeah. The other thing that can throw you off is the rear surrounds can appear to be on the side walls.
Yeah.
Mm.
They don't kind of tend to be inward that you would normally expect to see in a full 3D representation. In this, you can see there's really nothing on the back wall.
Yeah.
Unless you put a center surround back there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how much content do you actually get, Shane, where that center surround gets used? I mean, obviously that's the mix. The person has to mix that in there,
Yeah. I'd say about 90% of the stuff I
Really?
review. Yeah.
but interesting.
It's going to be used for anything that's upmixed.
Okay.
So
That too. Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
In Neural X.
So
You don't use
NW
it.
says, Chuck, when using active crossover in the impulse graph, should you cross over at the peaks or something else?
Well, the optimizer is going to do a pretty good job of aligning it, but you don't want to align on the peak. You want to align on the point where you start to get the rise, where you're getting the initial part of the impulse. So where it's going from the noise, the pre-ringing that takes place, it's pretty distinct where you see the low pass start to come up and the high pass start to come up. And that it's going to be the optimizer is going to put those, if not right on top of each other, very close.
Okay.
That's getting a bit more advanced, but
Yeah.
that's the answer.
So now we have the fine tuning with the bass management. So Chuck and I hopped on a call a couple weeks ago, and we went through some settings, and there was some stuff in here. I think you said most of it looked pretty good, and then we were talking about the heights, crossing over the heights at 80 hertz.
Right.
Even if, can you talk a little bit about that? Why should most people, or why would you encourage people to cross over their heights at 80 hertz, even if they can go down to 75 or 65?
There are two things we look at when we're determining the optimal crossover point for bass management. We want to take into account the capability of the speaker. We may get a measurement that shows a fairly flat response to a low frequency, but if the speaker has a very small driver, we are running the possibility of overloading it with bass or overloading it with too loud a playback signal. So one of the benefits of bass management is it reduces the burden on the woofers in smaller speakers. And the second thing we look at is the comparison between the before graph, which is what the altitude measures, and the after graph, which is the result of the correction that's being applied. There is usually, and almost 100% of the time, you're going to see a bass boost for smaller speakers to extend that speaker's response. So the after graph is going to look better than the before graph at the lowest frequencies. But we're getting there by putting a boost to those low frequencies. And once again, when you have a small woofer driver, putting a boost into it is going to limit its output capability and run the potential of bottoming it or damaging it. So by putting a higher crossover frequency, we're protecting the speaker, we're ensuring the maximum dynamic range, and we're also reducing distortion because the woofer doesn't have to work so hard to reproduce higher frequencies.
Yeah, and one of the things that I did that you were like, oh, you're already doing that, is where I sent some of the bass, and we could talk about that too on the next tab, but I was sending some of the bass to my left and right, or left speakers, like for my left height, can send it to the bass there to your main speaker because you know they can go down a lot lower. And yeah, I'll have you talk about that in a minute. But what is these here? So we have a quick setup. What is the quick setup for people that are doing the bass management?
Yeah, quick setup is going to cover most cases. Quick setup lets you set identical parameters for multiple speakers. So if your LCRs are identical and you want to set them, let's say to 70 hertz, you just click on the left, right, and center buttons, the little tabs. Click on the subwoofers. You have to scroll down to see the subs. And then change your frequency, which is currently at 80. Set that to 70.
Let's see here.
You just click on that, and you get a little pop-up window that you can either do with the plus or minus, or you can use the pop-up window and erase and then put in your frequency.
And then
we don't need to change the levels. Okay. You can, but for this example, we'll skip that. And if you click apply, it's going to do all three speakers at once. And typically your LCRs are going to be set the same. Your ear level surrounds are typically smaller speakers, so they're going to be the same. And your upper speakers are probably smaller still, so those are probably all going to be the same. So it's a more efficient way of assigning the frequencies and slopes than going through each speaker one by one.
Okay.
Which you have the option to do, of course.
Yeah. And then you would still need to go and save this because...
Yeah, once you've done this, it's not going to be preserved unless you save it in a preset.
Right. Okay. We've got a question here. It says, Chuck, can you explain the mic measurement settings? Not sure.
I need to know a little bit more.
Yeah. Can you give us a little bit more? Okay. So now we have individual setup, which you can do, which is what I was talking about.
Right.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
So this is the same set of parameters, but for each channel individually. If you wanted to, for example, in a case where you had 8 or 10 subs and you have them all around the room, and for whatever reason you wanted to have the subs on the left side play with the left speakers and the subs with the right side play with the right speakers, this is where you can assign a given speaker to a given subwoofer. So you could, if say sub 3 for, in this case, was on the right side of the room, we just uncheck that, and the bass from the left top front would not go to the right side sub. Now, if you can go and leave it there, this is what you were alluding to before, which is we have an intermediate bass management capability. So we can actually send the bass from a small speaker that might have to cross over at 100 hertz or 120 hertz, send that not to the subwoofer, but send it to the nearest speaker that is more capable at bass reproduction. So in this case, the left top front is going to the left and to the center. So that bass is below, let's say, I don't know what the crossover frequency was here, but let's see, we're at 100. So below 100 cycles, that signal is going to the center speaker and it's going to the left speaker. It's also going to the subs because those are checked. But from there, then the left and the center are now at 70 hertz. So everything below 70 hertz is going to the sub from the left and center.
Yeah, I saw someone that said, I think when I made my video, they were saying it's like, oh, you shouldn't do that because you're getting like double bass or something like that.
Yeah, I generally don't send it to the subs and to the nearest speakers. I just send it to the nearest speakers. Okay. But you have the flexibility to do that.
Yeah, it just depends on what you like, if you listen to it. And
yeah, it's going to end up in the subwoofer regardless,
right?
Because it's just gonna go through the left or the center in that case.
And then we have low frequency and miscellaneous. So Shane, what do you do with your speakers? Are you sending any of your like heights to your mains, or are you sending everything to your subs?
Just regular. So it crossed over 80.
80 hertz.
Little bit from there. I mean, I used to send it to the nearest subwoofer, but then I was like, well, doesn't that just with waveforming that just kind of eradicates it, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Well, you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. It's not going to work.
Mhm,
And you reduce the. There are a lot of benefits to having multiple subwoofers with the same signal.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have low frequency effects and miscellaneous.
That's pretty much set and forget. The low pass filter should be set at 120 because that's the standard for mixes. And you want all of your subs to be contributing to the LFE channel because that's the one that's going to work them the hardest. So you want to make sure that they're all contributing. That the check mark for the plus 10, again, is a standard. When a Blu-ray disc is mastered, the LFE channel is actually printed at 10 decibels below the other channels.
Oh.
And they do that to maximize dynamic range for the LFE. So you can get an extra 10 dB out of the low end. So in playback, it needs to be boosted 10 dB to be at the right level. If you uncheck that, your bass isn't going to be what you think.
Sometimes late at night, I'll uncheck it if it's like 12 in the morning.
For your neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an application. I hadn't thought about that. Makes sense.
Okay, let me head over to let me see if we have any questions. So Howard Wang says, waveforming didn't just change the sound, it transformed it. The first time I heard it, that clarity, like every note was carved from crystal, the highs, razor sharp, the bass, so deep, so clean.
Yeah, the waveforming, because of the decay reduction, is going to increase the clarity across the spectrum because the mids and highs aren't going to be masked by that reverberant low frequency energy that just hangs around in the room.
Okay, so here is the VNC GUI. What is the difference between this and what we were just looking at?
The VNC gives access to the advanced settings. So this is where a calibrator works to set the system up and where users can control a variety of parameters and things like target curves, things like output channel levels, and other basic functions like network.
Okay. So yeah. So earlier when you were saying how, like when you're crossing over your heights or stuff like that, you want to check the optimizer graphs, which is what you encouraged me to do when we hopped in the call. You said, hey, why don't you look at your heights and see what are they actually like rolling off at? And so we did that. We looked and you were like, okay, it looks like it's rolling off at about 100 hertz. So you were like, I would encourage you to, set that crossover to 100 hertz.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a pretty cool tool. So after you run calibration, you can see all your speakers overlaid, or you can just look at one. Very useful tool.
Yeah, and it's giving you, so the top graph for everyone viewing is the before graph. That's the actual measurement taken. You might click on the y-axis plus button in the lower right there and zoom in a little bit tighter, it's like around plus or minus, that's a little too tight, but maybe plus or minus 10. And that, so that's showing you a window. The top part of it is 10, plus 10 dB, the bottom is minus 10 dB. Your top graph is the actual measurement. The middle graph is the after the room correction is applied. And the bottom one is the filter that the optimizer is using to get to that response.
Okay. So yeah, you can turn all that off if you want to. If you just want to look at before, you can look at after and then filter. So this has been actually very useful tool for me. So, I didn't have this before, so I can go over and say, oh, my speakers are doing something weird. Maybe something's off. I can check that, or I can see what the natural crossover or roll off is, and some of my speakers there. Shane, how often do you use this for when you're calibrating? Do you use like manual calibration and look at that, or do you come here?
I let the Trinnov do that part. For subwoofers, sometimes I'll go and try to see if there's any issues there.
Okay.
Or depending if I'm reviewing speakers, I'll look at the before, because sometimes I like a little bit of sparkly high on the top end, so always like it to correct so high, so sometimes I'll
Yeah.
just let it rip. I might stop correction like 500 hertz or something like that, and just hear with the natural sound signature of the speaker, let that do its thing. So
Mhm.
Yeah, and so one of the things I wanted to show was, so me and Shane had sent me a picture of his. Let me pull this up. Shane had sent a picture of his calibration, and he was telling me. So Shane, tell us about
what was that? That was not
about your.
mine.
Oh, sorry.
That one's all kinds of crooked.
Yeah, we're that's why I wanted to show it. So this is Shane. This is Shane's room, right? This is your
Yeah.
speakers.
So how important is it? Because I take a few minutes, sometimes a while, just so I can get everything lined up perfectly with that mic. I'll twist it and angle it and try
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
That's about as perfect as I can get it, as I've gotten it. Is that perfect? Is that what you're supposed to do, or do you just drop it down and just let it go?
That looks pretty perfect, and
Yeah.
I take some time to get it close. We like to have it where the center channel, if it's dead center,
Mhm.
is within 2 degrees. This looks like it's within half a degree, probably,
Damn.
but which is great.
Do it.
If you are using if you're using remapping, this is important because the orientation of the microphone is going to determine how the remapping is being applied. If you're not using remapping, it isn't terribly critical. You do want to have a symmetrical measurement of pairs of speakers, though. So I think it's worth taking the time to get it right.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a radical difference in angle between your left and right speakers, for example.
What's the ideal RT60?
20 to 40, maybe 20 to 60
Okay.
milliseconds, or point. You're going to read as 22 here.
Mhm.
And that is kind of a very approximate measurement, because the real evaluation with RT60 is going to look at frequencies, because the RT60 is going to be different at lower frequencies than it's going to be at higher frequencies. It's one of the things that waveforming improves. So that's in there as kind of a rough guideline, which could be useful for comparing one room or one measurement to another, but it doesn't pretend to give you any kind of a complete picture.
So the highlighted speaker locations, those are my speaker locations. The other darker ones, is that the recommended for that size?
That's the theoretical.
Okay.
You can change the scale so they're all showing at approximately the same distance from the center point. But that's where they're going to be remapped to if you're running remapping.
Okay.
And it's never going to be precise, because these are all showing equidistance. So in order for you to match this exactly, you would have to place all the speakers in the room so they're the exact same distance.
Okay. Gotcha.
So
maybe in a studio, but not at home.
So this was mine, and so after Shane sent me his, I looked at mine, and Shane was like, "Hey, man, you got a couple of speakers that are a little off," and I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right." So this is before I had the little level. So what does this do? I mean, most of them are pretty okay, but I can see some of my heights a little bit off, and I tried to make the mic as level as possible, but
Yeah.
now I have this leveler. So
You'll see level by going to the elevation view,
elevation view,
which is the center tab.
Okay.
Yeah. What are you not running a center channel?
Yeah, use the scale button on the upper right, and you can zoom out, and we'll see your LCRs.
Upper right.
Oh, yeah, to the right of the graph itself, or it's scale.
Oh, I'm using my. So this is actually a screenshot. So let me go over to my. I was like, wait.
Yeah, well, that would explain it.
Okay, let me.
Yeah.
Remove this. Then go back over here. Okay, so you said the scale.
Yeah, so increase it.
Your center's in the neighbor's kitchen.
Yeah,
That's weird.
So you just so you take another measurement, and you're going to rotate the microphone a little bit.
Okay. So yeah,
And
so I didn't have a level. I mean, I was using the the little light in the front, and I made sure it was pointed towards. But I'll have to redo that again. But I
yeah,
wanted to show this because of what Shane's looks like and what mine looks like. So how does this actually affect the sound if it's not
if
perfectly
if
level?
it's not likely to affect the sound unless you're using remapping.
Okay. So then we have your elevated view and then summary. What is this here?
This is giving you the information uh, that's used to create that graph and level information. So it's giving you the distance of the speakers, the elevation, the azimuth, so that's the location in three-dimensional space, the calibration level, the compensation level, which the speakers were set to after the optimizer, and then delays that are being applied for aligning the speakers and aligning bass management.
Okay.
The bottom line shows you the bandwidth of the speaker, which is basically the plus the minus 6 dB points. So it's showing your left is like 26 to 21, 21K. So that would be the minus 6 dB points for your speakers,
Gotcha.
for your left
Now,
speaker anyway.
is any of this useful to the common user, or is this like more useful for like calibrators or somebody that's actually calibrating?
It's for the common user. It's pretty much just information.
Okay.
And it really is. I don't think there's anything here that you would read that you would override in any of the post optimizer settings.
Okay.
What if you run the optimizer, you get everything all set, waveforming and everything like that, and then you're like, you know what? Let me just invert this one sub in the back, and it sounds better. Do you have to recalibrate with that inverted sub?
Well, if you're just inverting the sub, no, but I would recommend it. I think that would be
Okay.
would make sense if you're finding an improvement there.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. I guess I'll be redoing mine again later tonight.
yeah. With waveforming, though, you don't want to be inverting subs.
Oh, really? Because I noticed I reversed the phase for two of them, and I was like, oh, this sounds stronger in the back row now than the
Well, it
front.
might be something to look at. We might want to look at the impulse response on the before measurements and see. Make sure they're all well aligned, because we want the impulse response for all the subs to match. Otherwise, waveforming isn't going to work to its full potential.
Gotcha.
So what is the setting here for settings? You got optimize, maximum boost, maximum attenuation.
So now we're getting to more of the getting on kind of the entry to the advanced settings.
Okay.
The optimize amplitude plus phase is the default setting. In almost every case, there's no reason to change that.
Okay.
If for some reason you didn't want to correct for phase, if you click on that, it'll change to phase.
Right here?
Yeah, click on the blue amplitude plus phase. And that's just amplitude, so there's no phase. And then the next position is going to be for low frequencies. It will just correct. Shane had said something like maybe he's listening to a speaker he wants to review and doesn't want to hear it with optimizer correction above the room frequencies. That setting would be useful for that kind of test. So it's only going to correct the low frequencies in the range where the room takes over the speaker's response. And this last one, according to left and right, is interesting. This will take the measurement of the left and right speakers, average that response, and use that as the target curve for the whole system. The idea there is maybe someone has spent $250,000 to buy a pair of speakers, and they don't want to have to create a target curve to replicate what the speaker sounds like. What this is going to do is it's going to take the response of the main speakers and use that as the target. So the target is to mimic the actual response. And then it will use that for the rest of the speakers in the system, so that you're preserving the total balance that the speaker designer put into the room.
Gotcha. Big Jack says, "How do we see how much gain or voltage is applied to a speaker? Other processors should should this be normal from -12 to +10?"
Yeah, if we go back to the positions tab on this chart, you can see the levels measured and the levels compensated for a given speaker, and you can kind of extrapolate that information. We don't directly report that, but you can see that that some speakers are being boosted more than others from this chart. So that's basically going to give you the you're going to see that speaker. Let's say speaker A is measured at 85 dB. Speaker B is measured at 80 dB. Compensated, they're both at 85. You can extrapolate that the speaker B is boosted 5 dB to match the levels, but we're not showing anything that indicates the voltage.
Before, when using optimized to left and right, it wouldn't level align the sub with new pre-level align. Has this been fixed?
I believe so. I can't say that I've tested that, but there's a setting in the advanced settings for when the target curve is applied to the subwoofer. The same target curve is applied to the subwoofer in the main speakers. So that would be under your settings, advanced settings. Advanced settings, and then scrolling down, we have. I'm always searching for this because post. It's under level alignment. Stop there, and it's the top section. Level alignment, post optimizer alignment off and on. So if your system, if you've calibrated not calibrated, but if you've configured your system such that the same target curve is being used for the mains and the subs, you want to turn post optimizer alignment to off, and that will better level align the subs to the main speakers. And I'll have to check with Paris to get an answer to that question, because I don't know. I haven't run into that, so I can't answer.
Okay. Got a super chat here from Home Theater Denmark. Hello from Denmark. Hope everyone is doing great. Tango out. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate that super chat.
Yeah. Hello,
Denmark. So target curve. So this is an interesting one. So you've got some different. Would you call these presets here?
Yeah, well, they're preloaded. They're
preloaded, okay.
Yeah, these are recommendations, starting points. They actually work quite well in most settings, but you're certainly not limited to them. The target curve is your primary tool for tuning the system. A flat response means that the system is going to be tuned so all frequencies are at the same level. In your home theater environment, you would find this to sound very thin, very unsatisfactory in the bass, and kind of bright and harsh. Not very natural. You might want this if you're mixing in a recording studio, but I can't imagine anyone using this for home playback. Speakers certainly aren't designed like that. So when you go to a light curve, we add a bit of bass boost and a little bit of roll off in the highs to add some warmth and take some of the harshness, brightness out. And then as you move through the other ones, the moderate is going to give us more of a bass boost, and the strong is going to get us up to, go to strong, we'll come back to musical. It gives us a 5 dB boost, and a lot of people end up there because they want a lot of bass.
That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Now you can manipulate the target curve. If you select any one point with a mouse, you can drag that up and down. And with the arrow keys on a keyboard, you can move them in small increments. So with this, you can fine tune particular frequencies or particular ranges. You
Shane,
have,
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead, Chuck.
You have the ability to save these. So in the lower right-hand corner, there's a button called Save. So you could create your own curve, click Save, and it gives you the ability to name it. So there, well, I see you over here. So we have a Hatoraid curve. So if you select that, we'll see what that curve looks like. Oh no, don't, because you're going to save over it.
Cancel.
You want to load. You want to hit load.
So it's basically I haven't changed too much here.
Yeah,
I saved it and then
looks pretty nice.
this is strong.
Yeah, so we could alter that and save it. There's also a separate curve there for music, which is a different shape, which is more attuned to what's preferred for music, which is more gradual and has a little bit of a bump up at 10K to give a little bit of sparkle to the sound.
Okay. Shane, which preset do you use? I'm sure you probably have customized yours, huh?
I just have like a little boost on the bottom, like 2 or 3 dB. I think that's all I did to it.
Are you using strong, or are you just using what it spit out whenever you did your calibration?
Yeah, I just used my finger just to give it a little boost on the bottom end. That's it though.
Okay.
I like mine a little bright, so I just left it as is.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So excursion curve.
This is getting a little more advanced. What this generally we don't recommend touching this because this is what tells the optimizer what it's allowed to do. So the green zone is what's permissible. The red zone is not permissible. The bottom x-axis is frequency. The y-axis on the left is boost and cut. So at the very top, it's boost 20 dB. At the very bottom, it's cut 20 dB. What this is saying is for all frequencies, you can boost no more than 6 dB, and you can cut no more than 10 dB. Mm-hmm. We don't recommend boosting anything above 6 dB because at that point, you're already 4 times the power compared to no boost. And that's very dangerous, especially for tweeters. Where you might change this is for a subwoofer, if you've got a really powerful sub and a very high power amp, and you want to get some extra boost at the low end, that might be useful. You're in a more advanced setting, I would say you're probably more likely to reduce the amount of boost than you are to increase the amount of boost that's available. But because the optimizer is working so efficiently, you really don't need to touch this unless you're getting very advanced. The only thing I'll do is I'll usually take that 10 dB cut and increase it to 18 or 20 dB. It's not going to change anything unless there's a huge peak in the response somewhere. And if there's a huge peak, you want to take it out.
Okay.
So this is one you don't worry about too much.
MW says, what does minimum crest factor and maximum for sub do? Can I use this to less restrict the subs?
Crest factor is for the measurement. It's not going to change the performance of the sub. Crest factor is the difference between background noise level and the test signal that's being measured. So sometimes in a calibration, you'll get a crest factor error. That can happen because the volume isn't loud enough. It can also happen if there's too much background noise. If your gardener started cutting along outside, it could have been potentially, if you were taking a measurement, that background noise at the mower could have spoiled the measurement. You wouldn't have to adjust the volume level to fix that, but you'd have to retake the measurement because the crest factor error would tell you that the optimizer wasn't getting a clean signal. But that has nothing to do with playback. The only reason you would adjust that in the advanced settings would be if you're unable to get a measurement with the default settings.
Okay. Big Jack 79 says, will we ever have the ability to load target curves using 10 key, or the mouse takes forever to adjust?
You can save target curves to a USB key, and that means you can load them from a USB key. So that is possible to go from one machine to another.
Oops.
In terms of importing them, otherwise, I don't know what other source you would have other than maybe another Trinnov user that might have some target curves that you liked. You could send the files and then just load them using the USB key.
Let's see here. I think that's. Is there any other best practices that you would use? Like I said, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff we can go into deep dive. But is there any best practices that you would use or encourage people to use if they're doing this by themselves?
Well, you want when taking a calibration, in addition to using the level and making sure you align the microphone well, I recommend using a microphone stand with a boom arm rather than a tripod. I like to place the microphone. We recommend you place the microphone right where the listener's head's going to be. And if you're trying to do that with a tripod, that can kind of be awkward in a nice, comfortable theater seat. So with a boom stand, you can place the microphone exactly where the head is. So that, and it also makes it easy when you're doing a waveforming to adjust the height. When you take you're going to take ear level measurements seated, and you're going to take ear level measurements standing. So that'll make it easier to elevate the mic for the standing positions.
Okay. Yeah, I use a light stand with the long boom arm, and that seems to work. Sometimes it gets a little weird depending on where the seat is, and you have to adjust it. But to me, that works the best because I think I tried with a tripod, and I was like, "No, this ain't gonna work."
Yeah,
you can't get it over the seat, where the head is.
Exactly. Yeah. The other thing we could have taken a look at, if we can go back for a second, look at the processor outputs tab. And this is where adjustments can be made. We sort of touched around this subject, but one of the things, a post optimizer where a typical user might want to make some adjustments is to levels here. When you've taken a calibration, by default, all of these numbers at the top, so we're looking at the top section. Each column represents a speaker, so we've got left, right, center, going from left to right. The number, we got 4.0 dB, 4 dB, 0, 0.
Yeah, I made some changes.
Yeah, that's boost that's been applied to those channels. The boost is applied to the post calibration measurement. So it's not flat. The 0 doesn't represent flat. It represents where the optimizer set that speaker. So you can do fine adjustments there to balance out a system. So if you think that the rear surrounds aren't loud enough subjectively, you just bring them up here. It's also where you can adjust the subwoofer level if you want to bring up the subs. So this is one area where there's some potential usefulness to make adjustments after the optimizer if you don't think that the sound is subjectively perfect.
Yeah, I made some changes to a couple of the subs, and then I did. I always like my heights to be a little bit hotter.
Mm-hmm.
I like them to be a little bit more louder, so I'll typically go and adjust that. But
yeah, that page also has solo and mute buttons. So if you just want to hear what's going on or what's not going on in the upper channels, you can solo them, and they're the only ones that will play. That's a lot of times used for troubleshooting, but it's also, just a fun way of evaluating what's in a particular mix.
Yeah, like, hey, let me see if there's anything actually come. I think Shane, you've done some videos like that where you've like, hey, is there anything actually coming out of the heights in this movie? Right? You've done that a few times.
Yeah, but now you got the meters and the graph, so it doesn't matter too much. Well, unless you just want to hear it with your ears.
Yeah, it's fun. You might want to do it a couple of times, and then maybe not so much. But again, it's another little feature.
So the meters will show. Obviously, there's nothing playing, but if I had something playing, then you would see all the different levels, fluctuating and stuff right here.
Right. And one side shows the inputs, the other side shows the outputs.
I was talking to John last week, and I guess at your headquarters, your training facility, you have the infrasub crossed at like 30 hertz, I think he said it was. So only getting low frequency for the
Right.
infrasonics. Would you set that before waveforming, before you run the optimizer, or can you do that afterwards?
We integrated that after waveforming.
Okay.
The waveforming algorithm does not have the ability to integrate the infrasonic sub. So that needs to be done manually.
Oh,
So what we do is align the waveforming and complete that
mhm.
with the infrasonic sub set up on one of the existing subwoofer outputs.
Yeah.
We use the active crossover function and make it a two-way sub, but we don't play the infrasonic sub during the waveforming calibration. It's brought in afterwards, and so it can be level adjusted and tweaked manually or optimally with a measurement system like REW or Smart.
Oh.
We also have a pulse generator that can be used to time align subs and main speakers. So you send a pulse to one of the main speakers, say the center speaker, and you can align a subwoofer to that channel, or you can align two subwoofers, an infrasonic to a main sub.
So then if you run the optimizer all the way through, so if I have 8 subs, take out the optimizer, it leaves me 7 subs. I run it through, do the calculation, and then I add the infrasub?
Yeah. There's a procedure. You'd set it up so that sub is in your speaker layout, but it would be muted during the calibration for waveforming.
When I get the crest factor warning?
No, because it's going to be a single channel passing through the active crossover. So one side of the active crossover will be your conventional sub. The other side will be the infrasub. The infrasub won't play, but the optimizer is going to measure your regular sub, and it'll be happy. It'll calibrate fine.
So then I add as a second crossover to like a different speaker, to like a center channel or something?
No, it's going to be it's you're using the crossover function, but you're not applying any filters. So the same signal is going to end up going to the regular sub, the conventional sub, and once you unmute it, the infrasub is going to get the same signal as the conventional sub. In the active crossover, you'll put that 30 hertz filter in, or whatever frequency you want, because it's right there on that page. So you just apply that filter, and once you've got your level and delay set, you put the filter in, and then you're set.
Interesting. Okay. All right. I guess I will try that.
Yeah, we'll log in with you and work with you on that. We try that.
Yeah, we're gonna do that.
Yeah, it's a bit of manual work. It's just the nature of where it is. We may have that capability in the waveforming algorithm at some point. We'll see. That's all I can say. I know we recognize the importance of infrasonic subs and that people are using them, and they're certainly going to be using with waveforming.
Yeah.
But I don't have any timeline or if that's going to happen or not.
I figure the pressurization mode would activate the infrasub.
It will help feed content to the sub, but it doesn't implement it directly. And again, the critical thing is having it time aligned to the rest of the subs, so you don't have a huge discontinuity and it's just making a big noise. Yeah, you want it to hit with the rest of the subs, or it's not going to be nearly as impressive.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, we'll have to get together for that. For sure.
Yeah, that's getting in the advanced part.
Yeah.
I had a question on the graphs. Do the graphs show anything below 20 hertz? Like, can you see what?
Yes. So I'll direct you to go to the lower right-hand corner, the box labeled Zoom.
Let's see, Zoom.
So it's in the lower right.
Lower right, you said?
Yeah, yeah. And under the
Oh
x-axis,
yeah, zoom right here. Yeah.
hertz. Hit hertz. And it gives you
Oh, okay.
4 frequency ranges. One of them is 10 to 300 hertz.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to figure out. I was like, how do I see below 1000? Okay.
So that's going to show you the range of 10 to 300 for all of the speakers, not just the subs. So it makes it much easier to see what's going on down there.
Okay. Yeah, I was driving me, and I was asking Shane. I was like, man, is there a way to see below 20 hertz? I couldn't figure it out. Okay. Well, it's been about an hour. Would you say,
Yeah.
Shane?
So Chuck, yeah, I think we're done with all that stuff.
Yeah.
Question for anybody that is interested in purchasing a Trinnov, with the way things are going right now, with possible increases, especially with eggs on the rise, and
Omelets? Anybody making omelets?
I haven't had eggs in months,
Oh my God.
but with the tariffs and all that going up, I would suspect that electronics, since we have a lot of parts getting imported from overseas into our favorite electronics, such as the Trinnov, which is it's a French-made product, if I'm not mistaken, from France.
Yep.
Correct. I would assume that at some point in time that there is going to be possibly an increase in the Trinnov as well, in the altitudes, also the amplifiers. I don't know if there's a time frame for that, but would you suggest that possibly people get ahead of it if they're looking to purchase it, get it now before we get, I'm sure you don't know how much it's going to go up, but surely it's probably going to go up.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know if this is going to end up with a negotiation and lower tariffs, if the tariffs are going to go away, but they're a fact of life today. And any product that comes in is going to be subject to, in our case, the Altitude is built in France. It's a French product. It's substantially French, so it qualifies as a French manufacturer. And that subjects it today to actually starting next week, to a 20% tariff.
Wow.
Products coming from China are going to be considerably more expensive. We really don't have anything coming from China, maybe an odd part or two going to France, so that doesn't matter. So for Trinnov, we're going to be looking potentially at having a price increase at some point. What the company's been doing to mitigate that is to bring in as much inventory ahead of time as possible. So we've brought some in. We have some additional product coming, and we will be able to offer that at current pricing for some period of time. Can't really say how long that is. It's going to be a function of the quantity we bring in and quantity we have and the demand. But the only way I could say for certainty that someone would be able to buy at the current price is to buy something relatively soon.
Yeah.
Not a sales pitch, but it's the reality. If we're all facing higher costs to bring the product in, that needs to be passed along.
And that's not just Trinnov. That's like
Everything.
any consumer electronics.
Yeah, there are other manufacturers that I've heard from conversations in the industry. They've already announced price increases.
Yeah.
Some are 10%, some are higher.
Yeah.
And I expect we're going to be hearing that quite a bit. The companies who are bringing parts or complete products that are manufactured in China are facing a considerably higher tariff. And pretty much everything that's coming from overseas is now going to be more expensive for the manufacturer distributor.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And that's going to be the Trinnov is a premium product. It does have a premium price. So even at 10%, that's a substantial increase.
It's not trivial by any means.
So if you're gonna upgrade, definitely hop on it. Of course, use the links down below in this video's description.
That's right. So we are right at about just a little bit over an hour. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in and getting some insight on the Trinnov. If you don't have one already, if you're looking to buy one, like I said, now's the time to buy because we don't know what's going to happen. And hopefully you learned something here today. Shane, Chuck, thank you for joining in. Shane, you wanna close this one out?
Yeah. So thank you guys for checking out this video. Actually, Jordan, what do you got coming up on your channel?
So tomorrow I'm actually going to go shoot the review of the Nakamichi Dragon dual 12-inch review at my coworker. So he's had that for a while. We were supposed to shoot it a while back, but he ended up having a death in the family, so we had to hold off on that. So I'll be doing that tomorrow. I still need to shoot the Extreme projector review. So I got that, and then I'll probably be working on. Well, I'll be working on the Nakamichi Shockwave as well, so that'll be coming in a couple weeks. But right now, probably the next video is probably going to be the Nakamichi Dragon Dual 12-inch review.
Nice. So guys, go check out that video. He did an unboxing the other day, so go check that out. Give the video a like. I've been checking out the Epson QL7000, the 10,000 lumen projector, and I'll tell you what, the most impressive projector I've seen so far in my home theater. Truly, usually, you know, I overemphasize in my movie reviews or whatever. It'll make you squint. Not all the time, it's just exaggeration. But this projector truly will make you squint, without a doubt. Brighter on the lowest setting than any other projector I've ever had, than the Sony, than any of the JVCs. Which, by the way, I do have the JVC N900 also in here as well. There might be a little head-to-head coming, so be on the lookout for that. And then I got a couple of subwoofer reviews, some book cards, and then definitely check out the Procella P815 unboxing that I did. That's going into the theater, and Chuck will be back again next week to talk about some new developments, possibly in the Procella speaker lineup, as well as their new logo, which is cool.
There is a teaser.
And it looks like we got one more question.
Yeah.
It says, is there a reason why the Altitude isn't using the newest version of the Dolby Surround Up mixer? And is there a timeline when it may get updated?
Well, we've had the same version of the software for years now. There are various technical reasons for that, and there's some other aspects of working with Dolby that I don't really have the details on, because I'm not working on the production side or in the R&D side. But I think that I suspect that ultimately there will be no timeline, but there'll be a newer version at some point, since Dolby has changed the version.
Yeah, and
Nice.
I will add that, you know, the Trinnov is still using pretty much the same gear for over how many years has it been, compared to like other processors and receivers that have to rely on chips?
Yeah, the first altitudes were in 2014. It actually made its debut at CEDIA in 2014. The hardware is substantially the same. The DACs have been upgraded in the last couple of years, and we've had multiple variants on the HDMI board. We're at HDMI 2.1 right now. But in terms of functionality, it's a completely different processor because everything is done in software. So over time, what we like to say is, over time, your altitude is only going to improve. We add features. We added DTSX Pro and had that a year before any other company had it, because we did it in software, didn't require hardware. We added the +4 capability that enables a altitude 16 to process 20 channels. We've added waveforming. So these are things that we've done in the past, and will continue to innovate and continue to add. So even though the hardware looks the same, what's under the hood is considerably improved, much better performance, and that's going to continue going forward. It's really a great long-term investment, and very sustainable in a way that a lot of other products just aren't.
Yeah, lots of free upgrades.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, make sure you guys subscribe to Shane's channel. If you're not already, subscribe to my channel, give us some likes, and stay tuned for those videos that we talked about. And I'm sure, you know, Chuck will be back probably in the future, and he's going to be back with Shane, be doing some more discussions on the Procella and Trinnov. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in to today's live stream, and we will see you in the next video.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.